Hello and welcome to another edition of Football Express. I'm Stephen Looney and joining me in the studio today are Rodney McAree, Glenn Ferguson and Mark McIntosh. All very welcome, gentlemen. As ever, we'll start with a quick recap of the recent results in the Sports Direct Premiership. Friday, August 23, Carrick Rangers 2, Glentoran 3. Saturday, August 24, Coleraine 0, Glenavon 2. Crusaders 1, Cliftonville 1 in the North Belfast Derby. Dungannon Swifts 1, Ballymena Utd 0. Linfield 5, Loughgall 1. And looking ahead to the weekend, Friday, August 30th, we have Ballymena Utd against Glenavon. Portadown against Linfield. And then on Saturday, it's Crusaders against Carrick Rangers. Glentoran versus Cliftonville. Loughgall versus Dungannon Swifts. And then on Sunday, it's a first look at the reigning champions, Coleraine against Larne at the showgrounds. And we're going to probably start with on last Friday night, the game between the Ports and the Blues. But first, Rodney, with you on, thanks for joining us today. I want to talk about your win over Ballymena United. First of all, it was a shot in the arm for you, no doubt. Yeah,
it was great. Great 3 points, especially because it was a very eventful day in terms of what happened in the build-up to the match with the four guys getting in an accident on the way to the game. It was unusual to say the least, because obviously you get a phone call at about 1:45, 10 to 1. It's a video call as well, so you can see the boys are clearly shook, and there's 4 cars involved in the accident, so it sort of threw a spanner in the work. But first and foremost, thankfully the boys is okay.
Well, just on that, I mean, I was going to talk about it later on, but now that you've brought it in, we'll look at it. Funny, there's been a bit of fur flying since then. Keep me right. I don't think, my understanding was there was no provision for calling off the game, without the agreement of the two clubs. There's maybe the rules are a bit vague. Some people would have said, Rodney, well, the 4 guys were kind of all right, and there was plenty of squad players. But I think you told me yourself it was a 4-car pile-up.
Well, at that stage we didn't know whether they were okay or not. They obviously couldn't leave the scene of the accident until the police had arrived. They were waiting on an ambulance to arrive till get medical checks done. The 4 of them all ended up in hospital that afternoon. So it just left it. It was more the fact for me that you had a squad of players that were waiting upstairs for you to go up and name a team. And obviously players put stuff in their own little WhatsApp groups or their own social media groups, and our players had got wind of what had happened. So obviously there's a wee bit of concern from their point of view, as the lads are right first and foremost, what's going to happen with the game. So it was just the uncertainty of it. So there's nothing within the rules that the league can call the game off. So it was a case of speaking with Ballymena and seeing could we agree to something. But I understood Jim's reasons as well, in terms of if the game was called off, they were going to have to travel to Stangmore on a Tuesday night. The players who travel a distance, which we have too. Ideally for me, I think if the game had been postponed or put off to a later date, it would have been the best scenario or the best outcome, but it didn't happen, so it was a case of dealing with it. I didn't know at that time as well that we did have a squad of players. I didn't know that we had a decent team that we could put on the pitch, but it was a case of then going and speaking to the players and reassuring them that everything else is alright elsewhere, and trying to get their focus in the game. And I think the players deserve great credit for going out and getting the result that they did, especially in the second half, where we maybe weren't at our best, and Ballymena done a little bit better. We had to defend that wee bit more. We dug in and fought our corner until the 94th minute and got the 3 points.
Well done. Deserved victory, well done, Rodney. Just on it, Spike, if I can ask you, you've a seasoned player and you've been a manager as well. I'm going to ask you, just as a sort of a layman, if you were in that position, if you were a manager and you had 4 players unavailable to you, like a RTA, would you want the game postponed? And if you were the opposition manager, would you have the same view? Would you be amenable to the game being postponed?
Me personally, I think the game should have been postponed, and I think Rodney's players showed great character. The psychological edge of their players being, not sure of how injured the players were, and having to go out and try and perform and off the back of that. But then, the four guys, I don't know how many of them would have started, but it's given other people an opportunity. And it's probably galvanised the team as well, the squad, and thought, let's go out and show them here. And they've went out and they've done the club proud. But even still after the game, I'm sure the 3 points is great, but I'm sure after the match, the first thing on their mind is the four lads all right, and hoping to get word from them. So I'm not sure the reasoning behind Ballymena's decision to play it. Personally, football, we're talking about being this football family and stuff, and travelling down the road, one extra journey, just to make sure that everybody is in the right frame of mind. And I think it was a poor decision for Ballymena to play the game, considering nobody really knew the full circumstances of the accident. But listen, it's worked out in Dungannon's favour in the end, and they've went and they've got the 3 points. The four lads are hopefully okay, and hopefully see them back in the pitch pretty soon. But it's a decision the clubs have to make. It's not my decision, and the decisions were made on the day.
Thanks, Glenn. Mark, it's a bit of a thorny one, and again, I must stress, I think the backdrop to this is there's no provision for such a scenario, and I have to sort of extrapolate it out and say that in discussions about this, I've heard maybe other people with knowledge of rules and stuff like that saying, well, what happens if you do introduce it, and say if there's a car accident, would it be abused? I'm not saying on the Premiership now, boys, but you know what I mean, if the rules are there and here, listen, you couldn't rule it out.
No, well, look, and I think most rules are there to be abused, and we've seen many of them abused down the years, but I think this one was slightly different. The video call, it was clear it was a four-car collision, and yes, you may have got the word before the game that the lads were all right, but they still all ended up in hospital. There was still a concern, and I get maybe why Jim or whoever at Ballymena makes that decision. I do understand it, but I was just disappointed in them as a club. I think human nature should have told you, some things are more important than 3 points on the Saturday. And I know Ballymena are up against it already this season, but some things are bigger. It just, to me, it left a bad taste in the mouth. But you could see from the reaction after the match, he was already having his pint of stout, as he said on the radio by that stage, I'm sure. But from what I saw, fans from every Irish League club were delighted Dungannon won, because I think everyone thought it was a very strange decision from Ballymena.
I think it makes it a little easier for me whenever we do get the result. As Spike says, the character that our players showed was exceptional, and they went out and got the 3 points for the four boys too. So it was actually good for my team talk.
Glenn said about galvanising your team. Mm-hmm. It clearly did that. Is that what you saw? Certainly in the first half, even. It
was certainly the reaction that we got. Certainly the first 45 minutes, I thought we could have went in at half time 2 or 3 to the good. But we didn't, and we made it difficult for ourselves by not getting that second goal. But it certainly did galvanise the group, and it also gave me an opportunity, because we went from Tuesday till Saturday. After having gone till Linfield on the Saturday, Cliftonville on the Tuesday, and playing Ballymena on the Saturday, give me an opportunity which was thrown upon me till freshen things up a little bit. So it maybe gave me an opportunity of putting legs into the team, which I was a little bit worried about, because there was 3 of the 4 that would have started the game. They were in the starting 11, and the other guy, Danny Wallace, was going to be making his debut as a sub on the bench. So it gave me the opportunity of giving others an opportunity and getting legs. Just
finally on that now, Rodney, the boys are okay? Or they'll be on the mend?
The boys are okay, yeah. They were all at training last night, but they weren't on the training pitch last night. They didn't train, so they've still a few aches and pains. So I think they have to. There's a couple of them have doctor's appointments and what have you today. So, but they're on the mend, which is first and foremost.
Great, we wish them well. Now we move on. We're going to look at the game, starting with the Ports and the Blues, as I said. Linfield, the backdrop to this is Linfield have maximum points. They've made a really, really good start. Portadown have taken 1 point from their 3 opening games. Now, obviously, I'm going to come to the situation in Linfield. Yours was a big story last weekend, and also this, Willie won't be about David Healy and Wraith Rovers. But we'll look at the football first. Again, the backdrop to this is, Rodney, that, Linfield, great start. Larne are laying off. I think it's fair to say those 2 will be involved, certainly, towards the end. You've seen them at close quarters. I've seen them. I think they look strong. I think they've made a really, really good start. So, do you think Linfield can maintain it? And let me ask you, do you think they have an advantage getting these 12 points on the board while Larne are laying off because of the European adventure?
I think it's massively important for them at this moment in time to get the points on the board. If they were playing their games and not getting the points on the board, then it becomes an advantage for Larne. So Linfield have started very well. I thought the first 45 minutes against ourselves at Windsor a couple of Saturdays ago, they were very good. They were the best that we have come up against. You've like a Cooper and Miller, who's started the season on the front foot. You've Kyle McLean, who's done very well, and Chris Shields obviously was controlling things in the first half. It's massively important that Linfield keep their best players, in my opinion, fully fit and on the pitch. I think at stages last season they maybe lost Chris Shields and maybe hurt them a little. So it's massively important that they keep their best players fit, but they're certainly making the most of the advantage at this moment in time.
And you will keep a close eye on matters in mid-Ulster. Your hinterland, Rodney. Portadown ringing the changes, brought a lot of players in on promotion. I haven't gained promotion to the top flight. 3 points so far. Do you think it'll take a wee while for them to find their feet?
Well, it's not like Niall to make a few signings. Like he's prone to making a couple. Portadown coming up last season, at the end of last season, is a negative for us as a club in Mid-Ulster, because obviously they come up, they've a couple of pound about them. They can attract players, as they've shown with Shay McCart and Larne McAree. So they've got a little bit of backing. They've started the season. I went to watch them at Cliftonville. I wasn't sure that they were brilliant against Cliftonville, but what they did against Cliftonville was they stayed in the game and give themselves an opportunity of getting something out of it, and they nearly did at the final, at the death. It's difficult. It's a difficult league. I think this league this season is going to be the most competitive league that I've been involved with, especially at Dungannon Swifts, down around the bottom six, because you're looking for other clubs and you're hoping that other clubs is going to struggle, and you're not sure at this stage who those clubs are going to be.
Thank you, Rodney. Glenn, come to you. This fixture, I want to ask you, Linfield start, are you impressed? And also the games at Shamrock Park, will Portadown trouble Linfield on Friday night?
No, I have been impressed with Linfield's start, particularly all their games seem to be very impressive in the first half. You know, they've got the games killed off, and you know they've come out in the second half basically. The game's been tucked away, and they know how to manage games. Over the years, Linfield have been very good at managing games and getting over the line. So to be, I think, 3-0 up a couple of times and 4-0 up, you know, it makes it a lot easier for the second half, and you can control the game better. Portadown might be different, you know. Obviously, Shamrock Park's pitch might be a bit of a leveler as well. I'm not sure how good or bad it is at the minute, you know. But it would depend what formation to go with. You know, Portadown on a Friday night will bring a massive crowd. You know, not just because it's Linfield, but because they're now in the Premier League, and they will want to put up a bit of a challenge. As Rodney's alluded to, they've brought in some more quality players. You know, Niall has signed, as he always does, to try and strengthen the squad. So it'll be a difficult one for them. But you know, listen, Linfield's quality, they've got on the run they've been on. You know, Joel Cooper and Kirk Miller have been playing superb. Matthew Fitzpatrick hasn't even scored yet. You know, Stephen Fallon's coming back, Timon McGrew's coming back, the players coming back into the fold. Cammy Ballantyne hasn't even really featured yet. You know, so the players there who, if they do come on and can play, will strengthen the squad as well. So if Linfield play to their potential, I think there's only going to be one winner in it.
Thanks, Glenn. Now, Mark, bring you in. You've been working at the coalface for a long, long time. You know Linfield well. We've got to talk about David Healy. What we know is Raith Rovers liked him. We understand David applied for the job. Last Friday, Raith Rovers asked for and were granted permission to speak to David. We understand there were discussions. Well, we don't think that personal terms were a problem. It looked like all systems go, and then on Saturday there were discussions, internal discussions at Windsor Park, internal discussions between David and the club's fathers. And there's a deal, and David doesn't. David decides to stay, gets a 1-year extension. Are you surprised?
Yeah, I was. You know, I think we've all spoken to David in the last few years, and we know he's ambitious, and he would like to manage at a higher level at some stage. You know, this is the first proper opportunity he's had. Certainly my understanding was that he was very interested. You know, as you said, he applied for the job. It shows you that he was interested. And everything was pointing towards it. I think the bigger thing is, look, it's great news for Linfield. Linfield are lucky to have David Healy. You know, a lot of people, Linfield fans, for whatever reason, still question David, which just blows my mind. But it's great news for Linfield that David Healy's staying. But I think there are wider questions. You know, people will have seen social media, which isn't a great place to look for information or opinion, but certainly my understanding was that, Linfield haven't won the league for 2 years, and David Healy was told that any sort of future discussions about a new contract and his future would be in November. Now, isn't it interesting then, as soon as one club comes along and bats their eyelids at him, Linfield then all of a sudden put a new contract on the table? Now, the questions for me are, was that the Linfield board wanting to do that, or was that one or two people on the board? And look, the chairman, Roy McGivern, we all know Roy, great fella, and I don't think David Healy's had a bigger ally within the club than Roy McGivern. But certainly I think a lot of Linfield fans will be wanting questions answered from the board, because, like I said, for whatever reason, there are still question marks over David. Like I said, I can't understand that. But I think there are big questions. And yes, it's great for Linfield that David's decided to stay, but I think it now puts even more pressure on trying to win that league this year. A lot of people maybe don't agree that he was being given this contract extension now. I think a lot of the people probably would have had no issue in November, but for it to happen now, I think a lot of people are questioning it. And Linfield have to continue what they're doing now on the pitch, and you look at the games they've had so far. On paper, they should win those games, and they had to target 5 wins from the first 5 games. To be fair, they've done that, but for me, David's there's so much pressure on him now. Now, he thrives on it, we know that. That's such pressure all the time at Linfield, but I think there's bigger pressure than ever.
I get that. I'm sort of sniggering a little bit, because I just keep thinking you hard taskmasters at Linfield, like expecting to win. I understand 5 wins out of 5. You raised some very interesting points. There has been fair flan within the Linfield community about this and what was going on in the background. Linfield as a club, I know, want to quash rumours that David was angling for, was playing Linfield to get a pay rise. Pay rise was not asked for, not requested, and not given. And indeed, there's an agreement in place. My understanding is that if Linfield don't win the league this season, David will take a pay cut. The backdrop to this is Linfield insiders know that Larne have changed the landscape here, with Kenny Bruce's financial muscle. They're still very ambitious. And my concern is that because of the nature of the Linfield family demanding success, and also, as Roy Coyle always said, sometimes you can be there too long, that maybe this will irk some supporters who will lie and wait further down the line. Glenn? Yeah,
possibly, but David's been there. He's been very successful, albeit the last couple of years have been difficult because of Larne's dominance. But Linfield are off to a good start this year, and they've got to maintain that. And it's okay saying that Larne still have the matches to catch up, but when you have games in hand, people always say I'd rather have the points on the board, because the games start to mount up and you're playing Saturday, Tuesday, whatever it may be. It could well be Thursday, Sunday, whatever they're playing. I would rather have the points on the board. So I think Linfield are in a stronger position now, and that'll certainly give David, the players, the backroom staff, the momentum to go on and continue to do well. Because Mark said as well, this is going to be a big season, and there is going to have to be some signs of success, a better league challenge, and we're going to have to try and mount that challenge against not just Larne, but there's other clubs there this year as well. Clinton will be thereabouts, Glentoran, possibly Crusaders, and they're going to have to try and win the league title, because 3 years without the league title at Linfield, the fans do get restless and questions will be asked, but as Mark again said, David thrives in the pressure. And if David's not there, who do you get? There will be 100 applications for the job, but it's getting the right one. And there might just be someone who come out there who might just want the job just because it's Linfield. David wants it because he's a Linfield supporter. He wants to be there. And the board have made that decision. They're going to have to stand by it, and the supporters are going to have to support him. And that's the bottom line.
Thanks, Glenn. Rodney, it's intriguing here. I'll talk to you because I want to get your viewpoint sort of from your area and Dungannon, looking at the big boys with the big reddies. I said earlier on, I think Larne have been a game changer in Northern Ireland, the Irish League. Other clubs have had to respond, and I think Linfield are still grappling with that. Of course, Larne are playing in Europe. If they get into the group stages, and well, I certainly hope they do, we wish them well, they get more money as well, and there's maybe a fear in Windsor that they could stretch even further into the distance. I want to ask you, how do you view it? You have a particular very successful model in Dungannon. You can't pay the big wages that we hear it elsewhere. So, but I do want to ask you, how do you think finances influence the top of the table and the chase for the title?
It certainly helps. Obviously, you still have to identify the right personnel, the right fit for your own club to come in and make your own club successful. To be fair to Larne's recruitment over this past few seasons has been very good. I think whenever they brought us Roshan Williams in Christmas time for the second half of the season, he was a massive influence on them because they kept loads of clean sheets whenever he arrived, conceded very few goals. So obviously finances help that part, but it has to be spent properly. I just get a little bit jealous, to be honest, whenever I see the money that's maybe being bandied about and you're back to your own budget. But our club's working tirelessly and working very hard to try and give us a budget that can still be competitive probably within our own little league. We know that going to Linfield a couple of weeks ago or going to Cliftonville's maybe not going to be the reason where we finish in the league. It's the other games, and we look at a pool of teams around us that we have to compete with financially and see whether we can finish above as many of them as we possibly can, and it's extremely difficult. I think the money at the moment in the league, which has obviously had a knock-on effect from the full-time clubs, has become extremely difficult for us. It's become a harder field to compete in, because you go down your levels of players, and the next player's getting a little bit more than he used to, and then the next player's getting a little bit more than he used to. So it has a knock-on effect and makes it difficult. But I think the model that Larne have put in place has been exceptional. I think they've went about it in the right manner. They've a lot of full-time staff working within or behind the scenes to make sure everything's done as professionally as they possibly can, and you have to admire them for that.
Thanks, Rodney. Staying with your good self there, another game on Friday night. Ballymena play Glenavon at the showgrounds, and it has to be said, Jeremy Irvine needs to start getting points on the board. 4 straight defeats. Glenavon recorded their first win in 4 games with that 2-0 victory over Coleraine. Maybe I'll ask you, I think this fixture already has significance for further down the line. Would you agree? I know that you're always looking upward, Rodney, but I also know at Dungannon you can't afford not to look over your shoulder.
We can't get too carried away. I think we looked at our game on Saturday past at home to Ballymena in a similar light, because our first 3 was tough games. We only got a point out of them, and should we have got no points out of the Ballymena game, all of a sudden it was a tough task straight away. So Glenavon have maybe surprisingly in a way went to Coleraine and won 2-0. They'll have gained a little bit of confidence and belief off that, and going in against a Ballymena team that maybe hasn't started the season the way Jim wanted them to. But I think Jim has got good players. I think they've good players within their squad, as do Glenavon. I'd be surprised if either one of them, to be honest, is looking over their shoulder come the end of the season. But if you don't get points on the board quickly enough, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a position where you are looking over your shoulder, then that pressure begins to mount, and it's very difficult to get results.
Yeah, you're playing catch up and you don't want to be doing that at the bottom. Thanks, Rodney. What, I was going to say 2 of your former clubs, one you managed and one you played for, obviously. There's no doubting about it. Listen, Jim Irvine did very well in the summer, made the transfer coup of the summer, Ben Kennedy and a lot of other people. But Glenavon, I've seen a fair bit of Glenavon this season so far, and my surmisal was that they can play well in patches, like in patches the first half or the second half, but they can't, not consistently. It must have clicked there against Coleraine. But this is a high pressure game already, Glenn.
Yeah, it is. Ballymena have signed a lot of players, and maybe it will take a while for these players to adjust and play with each other to try and get results, because they are quality players. But it's going to have to happen pretty soon, because if you lose another game, you go 5 or 6 of them with no points, and you're playing catch up the rest of the season. Glenavon, I don't know what Glenavon's thinking. O'Donnell Stevens, he's narrowed the pitch at more in view to bring it in to maybe play a tighter game and try and play through the lines. But every other week he's going to be to another pitch. It's going to be it's as wide as they all are. You know, she's going to find it difficult. And Glenavon notoriously over the years, you know, of their previous manager Gary always played a 4-4-2, so they had wide men. So now to try and adjust that and bring them in, and then maybe have to try and do that every other week. You know, I don't understand the thinking in it, and I watched them against Linfield, and it didn't seem to do them any benefit, to be totally honest. You know, so if these two teams don't really find out what they're going to be doing very, very soon, I think both of them will struggle. You know, they're going to have to start getting points on the board and start to play well.
It's an interesting point, to be honest, but you look at Coleraine's pitch. I think the dimensions came out a couple of weeks ago. Coleraine's pitch is 68 metres wide. Mournview's now 60 metres wide. Maybe you can't change it back? No, hopefully not. Maybe I don't know.
It's a strange one for me. You know, it's different if you're making a pitch bigger to be the same as every other pitch in the league, but to make it smaller, then every other week you're going to play on a bigger pitch. Yeah. So how does that really affect your game plan? Unless he's just putting all his eggs in one basket to win home matches every week and the way they're going to play. I can't see that happening either, no. You know, because some other teams will have players who can adjust and are better players than what Glenavon have, and will adjust and still pick them off. So I don't understand the rationale behind it, but obviously Stephen has his thought process in that, and we'll see if it pays off throughout the season.
Thanks, Len. A couple of players that I've kind of have come to the fore in recent games for Glenavon, James Duna and Keith Ward, quite sharp actually. But Ballymena, Glenavon, Mark, you know, how do you think it'll go? And picking up what Rodney said earlier on, I understand that these are clubs that won't be thinking about relegation battle, but the thing is, somebody's going to face the heat. There's been an upward push from below, and you know, it's nervy times for a lot of people.
Yeah, and look, if you were cynical, you would say it's 0-0 written all over it. Thankfully, we're not cynical. I think there's such a different pressure on Jim Irvine this season. You know, we all know what happened last year, and they survived by the skin of their teeth. But with the investment in the club and in that squad over the summer, you know, the pressure on him is to challenge for the top 6 this year. It's not to try and get your first win of the season 5 or 6 games in. And, you know, as the lads have rightly said, the longer that goes on, you know, everyone talks in football about winning becoming a habit. So does losing. You know, we saw that with Ballymena last season. And, you know, we can't talk about 6-pointers, you know, at this stage of the season. But for confidence and everything else, Ballymena have to get something. You know, it's maybe unfair to have a bit of a giggle about it. Larne haven't kicked the ball and they're above Ballymena. You know, when you look at the table, I mean, that's crazy. And the quality Ballymena have, you would think they should have points on the board. But we said, you know, maybe a couple of shows ago that it's going to take time to gel. Now, in the Irish League, I think, because as Rodney said earlier, it's probably the most competitive league. When you take the top 2 out of it, it's probably going to be the most competitive league we've seen in years. So even at this stage of the season, Ballymena and Glenavon will both know they have to get points on the board early, or it could be a long, hard season.
Thanks, Mark. Just looking ahead quickly now, Saturday with 3 fixtures: Crusaders against Carrick Rangers, Glentoran against Cliftonville, which I've always felt is a very attractive fixture for whatever reason, and Loughgall versus Dungannon Swifts, a nice mid-Ulster derby for you, Rodney. Looking at them collectively, what's the game of the day, and how do you think they'll go? I mean, what I'm looking at there is Crusaders, I've actually been quietly impressed with. They're not, I don't think, you know, but they're doing rightly. Cliftonville, Glentoran's very, very interesting because Glentoran are showing something, and Cliftonville have something from last year, but Jim's still not happy. Still, they haven't caught fire, and I think maybe they need to bring players in. Loughgall, lost Benji McGee, Dungannon Swifts full of enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Loughgall, and I think most of us would have said that they might struggle in their second season. You know, they impressed everybody last year, and even after losing Benji, you know, that's a massive blow to them, a lot of goals, but, you know, they've started the season quite well. I would be quietly, if I was their manager, I'd be quietly confident that they'll be okay again. But I think you look around the games this weekend, they're all really good games. You know, the Glens and Cliftonville always throw something up as well. And like you, look, I can see signs at Glentoran that are positive. And look, yes, they played for most of the game a man extra against Carrick, but, you know, David Fisher is huge for them. You know, that fox in the box, 2 brilliant finishes. You know, Frankie Vid as well, you know, a lad who had a really poor game at the start of the season against Crusaders, but I think he's just went on leaps and bounds since then. You can see his confidence. You know, James Douglas as well, you know, a young lad. The Glen men love but getting behind a young lad as well at the club. I can see positive signs for the Glens, and I wouldn't be surprised if they got a victory against Cliftonville.
Thanks, Mark. the 3 games, probably Glentoran and Cliftonville is the pick of them. I would imagine Glen on Saturday, with all due respect, it has its own attractions. Where are Glentoran and where are Cliftonville as you've seen them so far? I don't think this will be easy for Cliftonville, you know.
I don't think it will, no. I think the whole 3 games, you know, looking at what's happened so far this season, those 3 games could go any way. You know, Carrick on their day have proven can go out and score goals, can beat teams. You know, Loughgall going to beat Carrick 3-0, Dungannon can win games. You know, so the games could go any way. I still think, personally, I think Glentoran are short of players for the course of the stretch of the season. Cliftonville will get better as the season goes on, but it's an intriguing game. You know, if Glentoran play to the potential, they've every chance of going to win in that game, because if they create chances, Mark said, David Fisher will score goals, and that's why it's imperative that they hold on to him this year. And I think Larne will come back and maybe try and get him again, but if they lose him, you know, it's a massive void, considering they need players. It's a massive void for them to fill if he was to go. Young James Douglas has been superb for them. As a lad I know, he played at Linfield Academy for a couple of years and moved on to Glen, and he's just went on, and he's been superb for them. You know, so, but I say the games could go either way, and I'm sure Rodney's thinking the same thing. You know, Loughgall on their day are capable of putting in a really good performance, but I think losing Benji obviously is a big blow to them. I actually do think they will struggle this year. I think they will, over the whole course of the season, I think they will find it difficult to emulate what they done last year.
Thanks, Glenn. Just on the Saturday games, I want to ask you, Loughgall versus Dungannon, there are a plethora of mid-Ulster derbies this year, obviously, with Portadown, Dungannon, Loughgall and Glenavon. I don't know if that makes any difference, Rodney, and that you tell us. And also, Benji McGee has left. You know, Nathaniel Theferis is there, who only scored 1 goal fewer last season. How do you approach the game, Loughgall, at Lakeview?
With confidence, with belief, but it's a tough place to go. Loughgall is a narrow pitch, it's a small pitch, the smallest pitch in the league. It's a local derby, there's only 8-9 miles between the 2 clubs, so there's going to be a good atmosphere at it. I wouldn't say there's an awful pile of love between the 2 clubs. I have the utmost respect for people at Loughgall and know them all personally. And I know Dean has a very, very good changing room in terms of togetherness and camaraderie, and sometimes that can get points. So we know that it's going to be an extremely tough game for us, but listen, it's one that you look forward to. If you don't enjoy playing in a local derby, you shouldn't be involved in the game, you know, so we'll look forward to it.
I think the good thing about the derbies down there now with the 4 clubs, you know, hopefully it'll generate bigger crowds. You know, good atmospheres within the teams down there. You know, rather than the way it's been in previous years where there hasn't been as many. But hopefully it'll bring the crowds out now and a lot more interest in it.
I think so. Now Sunday, we're looking at Coleraine against Larne. It is the first glimpse, as I've said, of Larne in domestic competition, because they've done so well in Europe after a poor start. Coleraine, I think Dean has said they are not where they want to be yet. He has certainly said to me on record that they need more players, up and down. So first things first, on the field of play, Larne, and we hope to do well in Europe, will their exploits in Europe affect their domestic game starting at Coleraine?
I'm not sure whether they're affected just now at this stage. I think if Larne go and get a result tomorrow night and find themselves in a group stage, all of a sudden then the amount of games and the amount of minutes that players maybe being asked, it could come into effect at that stage. But I think if Larne's Premiership season starts this Sunday and Linfield win on Friday night at Portadown, I think Larne will be going into that all guns blazing and making sure they get their season up and running. Obviously Dean will be looking at a response with Coleraine. It sets itself up for a very, very good game and a very interesting game at that as well. So it's one to look forward to. It's nice to have, to be honest, to get up and be able to concentrate on a game on a Sunday as well, you know. And
enjoy a game.
Enjoy a game, yeah.
Thanks, Rodney. Larne, Glenn, we've seen them in Europe, we've watched them. How do you think they're poised in terms of their team? We know that Lee Bonus has gone. Benji McGee has come in, few quid spent there. How do you think they're poised for the domestic campaign?
I think they're in number 1 position, particularly this week as well. They've signed another 3 or 4 players this week. And if they do well in Europe and they do qualify for the group stages, financially going forward next year, you know, it's a bit ominous for the rest of the clubs to try and compete with any potential targets, because if a good player becomes available, and if Dungannon, for instance, are going for him and Larne go for him, there's only going to be one winner if we're realistic about it. So this will really set Larne up for for the next number of years if it works out in their favour. If it doesn't work out in their favour, going into the league games, then they have their focus. Then they need to start winning league games to catch up. So it'll be an intriguing one. But I think a lot of it all depends on their European, not just the minutes on the pitch and the extra games. It's the travelling. We all know we've been away and trips and flights and hanging about airports and getting on planes and travelling, and it does take it out of you. So to be doing that potentially on a Thursday night, coming back late Friday night, recovering Saturday and playing Sunday, it's going to be difficult for them, but listen, who would change it? We would want Linfield to be in that position, and I'm sure Rodney would like Dungannon to be in the position, Glenavon would like to be in it, so, listen, Larne have worked tirelessly for the last number of years to get into this position, as a lot of other clubs have. Larne are in the number one slot now to do it, and if they do it, good luck to them.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm going to ask you the same question, Mark, about how do you think Larne are poised after their European exploits, and also the thorny subject of playing football on a Sunday. We know that this is thorny. Some clubs, notably Loughgall, don't want to play on a Sunday, and I respect that, I must say. I can see both sides of the coin. I can understand why it's, I've enjoyed the Sunday games. I used to play football on a Sunday. There's no issue for me. But I have to say, I do respect if people are very, very religiously, that way minded, that's their day of rest. I think I have to respect that. Yeah,
I think you do have to. I can understand maybe why clubs like Loughgall, they have that belief, and that's fine. But look, it's not like any club's going to be asked to play every Sunday. And I think if there's an understanding that one or two clubs don't want to do it, I don't necessarily think they would have been forced into it, or certainly not that much. Nowhere near as much as they maybe thought. The other thing that sticks in my throat a wee bit, these clubs who don't want to play on a Sunday, they all still want to enter the League Cup, don't they? Now, maybe I'm wrong, but the League Cup final is on a Sunday every year. So is it okay if it's a final, but not one or two league games a season? That's where I have a slight issue with it. Now, it doesn't take away from the fact if there is a religious belief, you have to respect that. But it's just, I love the idea, maybe I'm being selfish, but I love the idea of a weekend of football. For years we've all watched the TV with a weekend of football, and now with Friday night games, you've got your 3 o'clock games on the Saturday, and if you had a Sunday game as well, I think it's brilliant for the league. So I would like to see more of it. I don't think we will necessarily see more of it, but I think we also have to be honest. You have to take players' opinions into account, and I've seen quite a lot of players already say that they don't necessarily want to play on a Sunday because it's the one chance they get to spend time with the family and all that sort of stuff. But let's be honest, there's a lot of people as well love a Saturday night out. And you can't get away from that. Yes, the games progress and it's more professional, but there's a lot of lads love a Saturday night out, and that's why they don't want to play on a Sunday. And if that is the only reason, I don't think you can let something like that hold the league back when they want to play games on a Sunday.
Thank you, Mark. The rules as they are at the minute are if two clubs agree to play on a Sunday, the game can be played on a Sunday. I think that's fine. I actually personally, they're not my views necessarily. I don't have a problem playing on a Sunday, but I have to respect somebody that does. I must say, if it's a true religious belief, I don't think it should be foisted upon them. And I think, we've seen, accommodation made for, Ramadan in the Irish League and stuff like that. So I think we have to be careful about disrespecting people's properly held religious beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I can just say one more thing on the actual game though. Let's be honest, a lot depends on what Larne do in Europe, because they are never going to have a better chance than they have of reaching these league stages than they have now. There could be an almighty hangover if they don't get through. They know they'll never have a better chance. And we saw last season, Rodney knows better than anybody, they didn't exactly start the season particularly well. That incredible 4 each against Dungannon. I just think if Larne didn't get through, it could take a wee while to get over that. Despite all the quality they have and the confidence, I just think it could be an almighty hangover.
Thanks, Mark. Rodney, I'm just going to finish with you. You always want to get your perspective, hear different perspectives from different areas of the ground. You've no personal problems with playing on a Sunday. Does your club?
I think whenever they were asked the question, they said that they would play on a Sunday, but they'd prefer to play their games away from home, for whatever reason. I think everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I think Loughgall's entitled to their opinion too. I personally see no harm in playing games on a Sunday. I certainly think it's worth an opportunity in terms of the league having a look at it and seeing whether it helps the attendances and gives the league a little bit of a boost. I'm like Mark as well. I love the game on a Friday night. I love to be able to sit in the house or go to the game on a Friday night. I love the match on the Saturday afternoon. If there's another one to watch on the Sunday afternoon, as much as it'll disappoint Adele, I'll be extremely happy.
Thanks, Rodney. Funny, I was just thinking there about all this football. There are going to be some unhappy partners, wives, whatever. Rodney, great to have you on. Thanks for your contribution. Glenn, Mark, as ever, fabulous. That's it for now. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you the next time on Football Express.